So this one kind of felt like it came out of nowheres, though based off its booming popularity, this might almost be expected, I suppose. But let me just start off by saying this. So I watch a lot of YouTube. It's pretty much like my main source of visual media that I consume. I haven't really watched like regular TV in years. I do watch some movies every now and again, but in terms of something that I do watch consistently, it's YouTube. Now, the one thing though that I absolutely hate about YouTube is the advertisements. Now, I say that with a caveat. I don't care that there are advertisements. I understand that we need them, and, you know, people need to get paid, so we have to have them in there. And even with some of the more annoying ones, I suppose, I can deal with it. But the ones that I tend to get are so stupid. Weird, stupid, annoying, you name it. That's what I usually get. If it's not just something really annoying like, hey, let's go explore Nova Scotia when I already live in Nova Scotia, so what's the point? Then it's stuff like with mobile games, like I can't even list off some of the really obscure ones, but stuff like with AFK Arena, they've been making a really big push as of late, and I feel like it's partially because they feel threatened by this game, Genshin Impact. But they've been making a really weird push, and their advertisements are really strange. I do not understand why Elijah Wood and Markiplier are trying to do advertisements for these. Are you guys hard up on money? Because if you need $20, I can give you $20. But the ones I absolutely hate the worst are Raid Shadow Legends advertisements. Let's play Raid Shadow Legends. Start now for free. Whoever does the editing for Raid should be fired. Because I'm not even like a really good editor myself. Like I do my own things, obviously you can see. But I feel competent enough at my skill level. But like, Jesus, their advertisements suck ass. But when it came to Genshin Impact, I was exploring Facebook, so I'm already kind of contradicting myself. I'm talking about Facebook, not YouTube. Anyways, I was exploring Facebook and I saw the little thing pop up for Genshin Impact. And the first thing that caught my attention was Amber popping on screen. It wasn't the waifu thing that I'm sure you're probably thinking of right away, but it was the character design for her and just the fluidity of the animation that they used for her. Now, it didn't look CG, it didn't look like it was rendered from something else. It did look like something in game, I suppose, and it looked really nice. But I sort of ignored it, but I came back to it a little bit later on and I saw it again and viewed more of it, and things kind of caught my attention. So I decided to give it a shot, especially after seeing that it was coming out for PlayStation 4 alongside an actual mobile and PC release. The PlayStation 4 thing was what really caught my attention because I felt like that this might actually have effort put into it. So I decided to give it a shot, and that's actually most of the footage that you're going to see within this review is stuff that I captured off of the PlayStation 4 version of the game. And for that, I apologize because, in all honesty, I played for a little bit and then I promptly went back to PC, and I'll explain why a little bit later on. But enough talk, let's dive right in and take a look at Genshin Impact. So in Genshin Impact, you star as the Traveler, Outlander, godly type person, I don't know. Basically, you're a person that can jump in between worlds. After hopping around one day with your sibling, the two of you get attacked by this other godly person, kidnaps your sibling, and sends you permanently to the land of Teyvat. Teyvat? Something like that. After fishing up your guide in the figure of Paimon, you set out to the world to seek the help of the 7 celestial beings in the world to assist you in helping finding your sibling, all the while attempting to deal with all the issues plaguing Teyvat. Now, when it comes to the actual story that's presented in Genshin Impact, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it is interesting enough. And there's a lot of world building when it comes to this game that I actually kind of appreciate. You know, when I play a lot of games with like godly mythical features that are strewn about its world and with its religions and stuff like that, you normally don't really get to interact with said thing up until like either like the big twist of the game or like near like the very end. But in this, like, the godly figures are something that you actually kind of deal with quite a bit, and will have to deal with more as time will go on eventually. And it's not just with the fact that you're trying to like rescue your sister. It's with like the daily things that people have to try and cope with each of their gods. Like with Mondstadt's god, like, he's been missing for quite some time, but people continue to try to adhere to its message of freedom and self-expression and all that good stuff. But a lot of the other continents tend to bully up on it, so, you know, there's stuff to try to deal with there. With Liyue, its god comes down like once a year to give like this divine intervention that changes how the entire economy of Liyue changes. And for like the poor people, they really look forward to this because that might be the year that they might gain some wealth. And the really rich people are scared of this because it might be the year that they get dunked down to below the poverty line. So it's really interesting, and there's more to come, which is really nice because this game tends to structure itself a little bit like MMOs, I feel. Because as it stands right now, the only chapters that we have to play through right now are the prologue chapter, and most of chapter 1, it stopped partway through at the very bare minimum what should be expected to be about 6 chapters with how the story is set up so far. And that's quite a bit to go through, and even with what we only got just now, it takes a long time to get through what we already have to play with. And this is all free to play, and that's fantastic. I will say though that it does need to work a little bit better on its sort of cliffhangers type of thing. I play Final Fantasy XIV quite a bit, so I'm used to the structure that it goes through when it's ending a storyline for that specific patch or that specific time frame at least. So there's a certain setup that you have to do in order to do it right. And so far with Genshin Impact, at the point where it stops before the next patch, the story doesn't really end very well. It's kind of pretty stupid, actually. You're invited to go to this house, and you're all like, okay, well, let's go there sometime. I don't know. It needs a little bit of work on its storytelling, but other than that, what we have is really good. In terms of the exploration in this game, it's probably been said, compared to otherwise stated a billion times by now, but this is very much The Legend of Zelda, The Breath of the Wild, but anime. That is the very easy comparison to make, and I mean, plagiarism isn't like great, I guess. I would kind of prefer to have people, you know, come up with their own ideas for most of their gameplay stuff, but it's at a point now where it's so hard to come up with wholly unique things. So, I mean, if you're going to copy something, it might as well be one of the best open world games to have come out within the last 10 years, even, in my honest opinion. Breath of the Wild is quite the masterpiece in how it handles its open world exploration, and Genshin Impact pretty much copies it word for word. It's slightly easier in most respects, but I do appreciate it nonetheless. You have freeform exploration wherever you want to go. You can climb up like 99% of all cliff faces. You can glide from tops of mountains to far off destinations, all while managing your stamina, which is fine. You have to run around collecting treasures and fighting mobs of enemies as you come across them, and even do the odd dungeon here or there. It's all well and good, and I do like it quite a bit. In terms of its combat, Genshin Impact is somewhat simplistic to an extent. Like games like this before it would have a far more intuitive combat system for its characters, and per each individual character, the game isn't all that complicated. For each character, they would have a simple like auto attack type of deal that they would have at constant command. They also have, I'm not 100% on the terminology, I kind of get mixed up on it a lot. So more or less, they have a special that they can use on a slight cooldown, and then they have their ultimate ability, which is on a bit of a longer one. And they have to also collect like energy orbs that helps refresh it every now and again. So it is somewhat simplistic in that regard, but for each party that you assemble, you only control one character at a time, but then you can quickly swap to anyone else out of the 4 that you pick on the fly. So that's kind of where the diversity comes within your combat. That, as well as with the elements. Now, when you hear elements, the first thing that might come to your mind is something like Pokemon, where, you know, one element might be weaker to another and so on and so on. It's not 100% the case. There are some elements that do have an inherently stronger weakness to another one, but more or less what you aim to do for most combat is that with each character, unless they are a magic user or a charged up bow user, all of your attacks will do just normal damage, but with your special and your ultimate, they're directly linked to that character's specific element. And when you hit an enemy with an element, you can try to like pair it up with another one to try and cause a chain reaction, which will do more damage. Now, not all of them can be stacked onto an enemy. Stuff like wind or geo, they don't stack, but in fact cause a stronger reaction with a different element, like with fire or water or whatever. They tend to stack better. So that's what you try to aim to do, is try to stack as many lower grade elements as possible, and then to try to cause a reaction with a stronger one. It's pretty interesting. In terms of the design, I love how just artistically beautiful the world is. These types of games, like with this or like Persona 5, stuff like that is what continues to impress me visually with video games. It bugs me that we're striving so hard for like the hyper realism that we want in our video games for some reason. I just want stuff that will look good for the end of time, and Genshin Impact style does do it really well. The open world looks nice, there's lush grass everywhere, there's sunsets everywhere, it's all beautiful, and the character designs are also just phenomenal. I love the colors that they use for everyone. Everyone's got a nice design, each separated from each other. And I mean, yeah, you want your waifus? You got some waifus. You want your husbandos? There's a smaller handful, but they're still there, so that's all well and good. My biggest problem, though, with it, and it's not necessarily the game itself specifically, I feel like it was just sort of something to do with maybe trying to make it playable for PlayStation or something like that, but regardless, it might not seem overly noticeable here, but this game chugs hard on PlayStation 4. It is almost unplayable sometimes. It's locked immediately at 30 frames, and even then it hardly ever reaches 30 frames all the way through it anyways. It tends to just chug all the time. So I switched over to PC, and everything's much more fluent. It's like 60 frames, sometimes dips, doesn't really though for the most part. So if you can, play it on PC. Hell, even mobile's not even all that bad, although I find that with just how much you're asked to do with this game, despite its simplistic button nature to it all, it's almost a little hard to do it on mobile. This might be like the one game that's built for mobile that really doesn't work for mobile. So take for that as what you will. I'm not quite sure how to think of it myself, but it's nice on PC at least. So now we got the big elephant in the room, and that's this game's gacha system. So let me just say this first. I don't really play a lot of those really stupid gachas, obviously. Like, I find them really lame, I suppose. The idea of a gacha game intrigues me more with an actual IP that I recognize. Hence why I do play stuff like Pokemon Masters and Fire Emblem Heroes. Now with Pokemon Masters, I'm pretty much strictly free to play for the most part. I might have put in $20-30 since its launch, and only really during the times that they have the banners that will absolutely guarantee you a 5-star when you put money into it. So that's the only time I've ever really done it, and there hasn't really been that many. With Heroes though, ooh, smell that? Smells like whale. Grab the harpoons, boys, we're going to hunting. Ha!
But sir, that's not a harpoon, that's...
I know what I said. I'm limited on my prop resources. Yeah, I put a lot of money into Heroes. I've been trying to cut back as of late. It's a little bit of a problem, but I recognize it. I'm working on it. Anyways, so to that extent, I've experienced both like the free-to-play spectrum of things, and I've also experienced the whaling side of things. And what do I think of Genshin Impact's? Man, it blows. To put it very bluntly, in order to get a 5-star character, it is a 0.6% chance. Something like that, something along those lines. It's below 1% to get a 5-star character or 5-star weapon, which is the highest grade in the game. And that is absolutely abysmal. Fire Emblem Heroes at its very base is like 3%, which then gradually increases the more you summon, which is, I mean, 3% is not great, but it's something. And I do appreciate that it goes up. Genshin's version is just so horrible. And while that in of itself is terrible, to get a 4-star character, which is the very lowest that you can go for characters, or a 4-star weapon, which is alright, it's only like another like 5% or something like that. Again, with heroes, it's something like of a 30 to 40ish something percent chance to get a 4-star character, which is not great. You still want a 5-star character, but it at least helps you build up to said 5-star character later on. In this game, 4-star and 5-star characters are basically the same, to be honest. It's just a matter of if the developers can predict if someone really wants a waifu or husbando type character, which is why some of them are relegated to 5-star. And that's something that I guess can be mentioned, is that you can play the game with 4-star characters all the way through, and that's not really a problem. But it still sucks that a lot of them are locked behind such a low percentage rate. One thing that Genshin Impact's gacha system does better than most, though, which isn't too bad, is its pity system. Its pity system actually isn't really too bad. Far better than Masters, I feel, at least. With the pity system for Impact, 1 through 9 summons, if it's not a 4-star, then that 10th summon will be an absolute 4-star, which isn't too bad, I guess. I feel like, at least. And when it comes to 1 through 89, then if you don't get a 5-star, then that 90th pull will absolutely be a 5-star. It sounds like a lot, but what's beneficial at least is that that number of pulls that you have will carry over depending on the banner, type of banner that you use. It will continue to accumulate, which is something that even Fire Emblem Heroes doesn't do. And in terms of Pokemon Masters, the limit that you need to reach in order to get that guarantee 5-star is so high that it's just not manageable. So it's at least something that it does a bit better than both of those. Although I still feel like in terms of both its pity and gacha system, I feel like Heroes does it still a little bit better. Summoning isn't the only gacha game feature that it also includes. As well, there's also an energy system in the form of resin. Now, if you've even remotely checked in on this game, you will know that it has a pretty bad resin system. Compared to like the rewards it hands out daily, or just for what you want to do on a daily basis, what you can do with resin is extremely limited, and also recharges so slowly. They are attempting to fix it for the next patch, so that way it will be at a more stable number that will work a little bit better to the player's advantage. But the cap wasn't really the biggest problem for me. It was its recharge rate, which is set to 1 point per 8 minutes, when the lowest numbered thing that you can use costs like 20 resin. So it's pretty bad and definitely needs some tweaking. Alongside the items and equipment you get with resin, you can also get a bunch of stuff through just the open world exploration and killing of mobs all the way through. And a lot of that stuff you would use to upgrade your characters and other weapons that you have. Now, it's not so much the items itself collecting that is a problem, but after a while, you eventually run into a money issue, since no matter what thing it is, it will still cost money to upgrade the things. So that also kind of needs a little bit of a tweaking, I feel. I know I know all that what I just said is mostly done to incentivize you to come back on a regular basis, but I don't know. I feel like if you are dedicated enough to play on a regular basis, you should be rewarded for said activity. So, I don't know. So at the end of the day, this game is interesting. It's absolutely free to play, and it's possible to play through a huge bulk of this game purely free to play. And I think that is amazing, honestly. I know that this game is splitting a lot of people in terms of like its manipulation tactics and all that other stuff. I know this game's also got issues all on its own, but after a certain point, you know, once the main story is done, so far at least, and that's something that's really interesting, is it will keep going, hence its MMO style pacing. Once you're done with the story and all that stuff at that point, then you just kind of go into the daily grind, you pick up some stuff, and then, I don't know, go play something else. You know, I know it kind of sounds like a bad thing that it makes you want to play other things, but, you know, if you like video games, then what's the problem? You know, you play for an hour or two, even, maybe, depending on what type of stuff you're looking for in Genshin, and then you move on with life. I don't know what the problem is. I know the resin does need fixing, but I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. Anywho, all that aside, I think Genshin Impact is a really good game, and I don't think it's going to be like the absolute harbinger of chaos that I think some people might think it's going to be. It might be like a stepping stone, but as it stands right now, it's a fun game. If you haven't played it yet, I'd seriously consider just picking it up. It's free to play. You don't have to put any money into it. And if at any point you feel like, this isn't really for me, or I don't really like the gacha system, back out. It's free to play. You know, screw off somewheres. I don't know. I didn't mean that, kind of. But at the end of the day, it is fine. So I'm happy I've gotten to play it. But anywho, thank you all so much for watching. If you like what you saw, you can click right up there to check out some of my other videos that I've done. Or, if you really feel like it, you can click right up there to subscribe. And until next time, guys, I will see you all later.